but it totally froze my computer. Let me just check, because I might have something running in the background, and that could be a problem. Yeah, I have quite a few things. Let me just close things down. Are you still there? Yeah, we're back. Cool. Yeah, sorry about that. I don't know why that is. All right, I think I closed most of the things that I could close. Hopefully that doesn't happen again. If it does, I already saved, so if it does, just bear with me. But, you know, it shouldn't be a problem with ZBrush because I don't have much resolution anyway. This is something to do with my computer, which, yeah, I'm in the process of figuring out what to do for a new rig, because this one is coming to an end. At least the CPU is coming to an end. And the end of the journey. All right, I'm starting to see some patterns in here that I think we can work with. Maybe add some areas that are kind of like hollow. I think that could be an interesting thing. And you'll see me doing this quite a bit, but I already explained, so I'm not just gonna go over this too much. But this is something that I've been using quite a bit in the general sculpting workflow. Just that doing like a little notch just doesn't have to be like a massive change, right? You can just do a little notch and then use the adjust to figure out whether or not this is working. A lot easier, right? Rather than pushing all of those things. So, for instance, in this area, and this is quite powerful as well, I don't need to go ahead and mask out these so that I don't affect it. I just go with a tiny notch in these points, and those are the only points that I'm going to be pushing, right? So I can just clip that in that fashion without affecting anything else or masking things out. So quite powerful stuff. All right, let's go ahead and re-Dynamesh this whole thing. Let's see how we're doing. Maybe, I think I went a little bit too crazy there. Yeah, something like that. And I'm going to go ahead and merge these two. So let's create a new folder, call it OR. As usual, as originals, I'm going to select the gear icon here, and let's click on merge folder. That's going to keep the two originals that I have, hide them, and create a new subtool that has all of those pieces together. But this is just a merge of the two subtools. So there's still, if I hide half of it, there's still some weird topology, or not weird topology, just intersecting geometry that I'm not going to use. So what I can do is re-Dynamesh this again. And now we have a watertight mesh. And this is the type of things that I was trying to go for, this connection. So I can smooth this out a bit. And all of these, let's do mirror and weld as well. Forgot to enable symmetry. So all of these things that I'm doing at the moment are essentially blocking the general shape. So I don't know. I'm not even thinking about what are the details of this guy. I don't know if it's gonna have even eyes or anything. It's just gonna be, I don't know, just a head for the time being. Maybe, you know what, I think we can go for a pretty pretty thick and large horn in this area. Maybe. Or maybe it's just another flappy thing. I don't know. I'm looking at it from different angles as well, just to figure out the shape. So I'm not entirely sure about this one, just because it sort of like breaks the nice curvature that the other pieces are giving it. But you know, it might be something, and it might be easier to just do it with another piece. So I'm just gonna undo all of that. Let's go ahead and do a bit more of these interesting sort of hollow areas, and I can use something like the curve tube, which is pretty powerful stuff. The curve tube just, you know, gives you a tube, right? Nothing too fancy there, but you can do a whole bunch of different things with this curve tube. Right now, I'm doing it based on a single plane. So whatever I touch, that's gonna be that plane that is gonna be created, which is what I want. But you can use this in a different way to kind of like add pieces of clay and keep redynameshing, right? Let's see the chat quickly. Yeah, all right, you're still with me. No audio. Oh, it's okay, cool. Looks like an angry cuttlefish, maybe. maybe it's kind of like a fishy creature. We'll see where this takes us. By the way, guys, if you have any questions about what I'm doing, and whether it's about the thinking process behind what I'm doing or the feature itself that I'm using, feel free to put them in the chat. I have it right next to me, so. Maverick Designs, is that you, Victor? Cool. Alrighty. So if I were to use this as a way to add pieces of clay, to add volumes, one thing you can do, and this is nothing to do with new features, you can go to the picker palette here, go to depth, and in depth you see that by default the curve tubes is set to 1C. That's what I was saying before. It just analyzes the depth of your mesh, and whatever you click, that's the depth. It only picks it up once. If you click on continue Z, what it's going to do is every time as you move through the model with your curve, is going to look constantly at the mesh, and maybe with a smaller brush it's probably easy to see. If I do things like this mesh or this line is going to be following the contours of the mesh that you currently have, because it is constantly or continuously picking up the depth, and that's what this palette does. This palette is not very often used or explained or used anywhere, but it's probably one of the most important ones in ZBrush. So 1C and continue C, that's the difference. So with that in mind, I can just go ahead and let's move this around a little bit, connect it maybe there, and maybe push that one. Oops. If it moves the whole thing, that is just because of the stroke palette. If you go to the Modifiers Curve, this was introduced in a couple of mini versions before the 0.7 or 0.6. So you have the bend start, the elastic, and the lock end and lock start. So this thing just says that it only allows me to bend the start of the curve. If I enable bend end, it allows me to bend both at the same time. So this is kind of like the previous behavior of the brush. So now I can do these type of things. And so I prefer it this way. I'm just used to it. But when I do, like, let's say, stylized hair or something, it's a really good idea to keep it by default. But anyway, so turning these two things on, it allows you to bend the curve from either point, and also locking the start and locking the end allows you to keep those points in one place and just move the rest. So just a quick way to generate these interesting shapes. So I'm gonna do that, click somewhere else in there, and maybe do with a smaller brush size. So I'm just gonna start adding a bunch of these pieces. Like literally, if you are familiar with traditional clay, this is what I would do. Just take a piece of clay and then just push it into the mesh or into the sculpture, and just little by little tweaking that. You can also reduce the brush size, and that will change the thickness of this piece. And maybe we can find a way to connect this interesting shape, weird stuff here with the head, maybe, or with this part that I assume is the head at this point. Maybe something like this. So that looks like a mess right now, but like I said before, just I have an idea of what I'm going for, and in terms of the shapes, I guess the volumes that I want to create. So as long as I keep at it, I'm pretty sure there's something hidden in here that we can get out. Okay. Now, the next stage, I'm gonna clear that mask. Obviously, this looks very messy, very noisy, but the next stage would be to change the whole visual, as in you won't be able to identify that these are just like worms in the head or tubes, and actually make sure that these are just volumes that you're setting up as a secondary form or as a primary shape, right? I would say secondary at this stage. And for that, we have all these pieces. We can go ahead and Dynamesh with a tiny bit more resolution. Just clear that. Hold Control, click and drag, and now we have this. So we can obviously go for the smooth brush, and the smooth brush was, it's gonna work just fine just to integrate these things. I personally, when I'm sketching this type of weird stuff, I like to use something like the clay tubes or the clay brush. The clay tubes is something that will be pretty cool for hard surface. So you can do, you can turn this into a kind of like Evangelion type of thing just by doing this, like a sharp things. But this is quite organic anyway, so you can click on clay brush, for instance, and then slowly start refining these pieces. And at this point, also smoothing things out. In fact, I'm gonna switch to the smooth pix, this one right here, which comes with ZBrush. So smooth pix, this one right here, just because that one respects the crevices, right? So it's only gonna smooth out the peaks. If I go ahead and smooth out this whole area, and I'm pressing quite hard just to show you, you'll see that the difference between the tube and the actual mesh is sort of like kept very sharply. So I'm gonna use that one just because, I don't wanna lose the whole idea. But the good thing about this brush as well is that if you start smoothing out and then you release the shift key, it goes back to the normal smooth brush. So you can use kind of like both smooth algorithms in one go. All right, so this is what I'm gonna be doing now. So it's gonna be a bit repetitive, but hopefully gives you guys ideas. So essentially just taking those tubes, those shapes that I generated very easily, and making sure that they kind of like make sense, that they're integrated with the creature, with the head, whatever this is, and they don't just look like blobs of nothingness. This is actually, like a huge, I don't know, like a tendon. No, it's not a tendon. Something that makes part of the anatomy of this creature. So we can get away with a few things in creature anatomy, I suppose. But yeah, that's the next stage. So just taking the time to sculpt this out. So if you guys have any questions about this or anything, relevant. By the way, this area, I just realized that it's quite thin. So just to be safe, I'm gonna enable back face masking for the clay brush, meaning that if I go ahead and press really hard over here, maybe this area, and I rotate around. Oops, almost froze. ZBrush doesn't affect the back faces. That's what the back faces mask do. And if you're not familiar with that tool, that's an awesome tool that is under the brush palette. You can scroll to auto masking, and this one right here, back face masking. Let's do a quick save and let's see the chat. I always forget about the curve to brush, something I've been looking for. Yes, it's an awesome tool, and in fact, I'm going to show you something even more interesting with a similar approach, but it's going to give you a lot of freedom to do some cool details with similar approach. I'll show you that in a second. Super Mikey, loves how I got to this stage. Yeah, this is going to be available after the stream. In fact, you can. I believe you can go back already in the live session. I don't know, but yeah, we've been just playing around with a bit of the adjust last, the masking, a little bit of the new features in ZBrush, but mostly designing freely this type of creature. How many polygons you can see at the bottom right here? These are the active points. That's the selected subtools. The selected subtool really. The other points, the total points, is from the total amount of points that this tool has. So this has the original 2 meshes, or the 2 pieces, but this is just the active one. So in a way, this is similar. It's not the same, I would say. I mean, in terms of the process and the tools that I use, is very similar to the creature workshop that I mentioned at the beginning. That it's available now, by the way. So for anyone that just joined, the creature workshop is now part of the 3D concept artist tools or resources. But obviously, you know, there's a lot more. It's a lot more structure, and that's one of the things that I feel very proud about the content that I put out in that website, because as you can see, like for me, joining into a live stream or just start recording a tutorial like this is pretty easy. You know, it's something that I quite enjoyed as well, and especially if there's a live component to it, with people asking questions and that sort of thing. This is something that is really easy for me. I mean, when I say easy, I feel comfortable doing it. I know the tools, and sometimes I just branch out and talk about random stuff. But yeah, I think it's really something that a lot of people find value in, and I think that it is very informative. The biggest difference between what I do with these type of streams that are a little bit chill and we can talk about different things, and an actual course or an actual workshop that I have in the 3D Concept Artist website, is the fact that I spend, let's say, if the workshop is 3 days or 5 days, I spend a good 2 or 3 months planning it or more. And the plan just basically means that I do things 2 or 3 times. I go through the entire process 2 or 3 times to make sure that is bulletproof, and the structure that I create is something that I feel like very proud of, because I can see that it works. I can see my students literally just following the steps to create anything that they want. In fact, all of the students that I had in that workshop, and most of the students that I have in, let's say, the extra mile, they create their own creatures. They build their own worlds, their own concepts, rather than just following a specific, instead of following this design that I'm doing, they will do their own design, and that is all thanks to that kind of like methodology. So that's what the biggest difference is between the tutorials that just show you like a nice technique and features maybe, which I think they're still pretty valuable stuff. It's just that for this type of workshops and courses, I do spend quite a bit of time setting them up. to ensure that they're valuable for whoever does the courses. So yeah, and I'm just saying that because I did get a question in an email recently about like what's the difference between like why would I get a course or a workshop when you do heaps of free stuff online and free these live streams and stuff like that, which I'm not gonna stop doing at all because I also really like doing this, right? I think I can I can solve a few questions or answer a few questions that you guys have in these live streams. It's just, I would say, and again, this is not something that got asked or anything, but just might as well say it. I think it's just depending on your level of commitment, right? So if you're just a hobbyist or just getting started, this free stuff or what I share as well in the ZBrush Guides website, those are like pretty in-depth tutorials as well, and pretty high quality resources, I would say. Like I wouldn't put something out there that I'm not kind of like proud of. But if you're committed to take it to the next level, that's what the courses are for, and the workshops. Let's turn this off. Sorry. Let's have a look at the chat. Let's do a quick save as well. Hopefully you can start to see something beginning to emerge in this creature. There's still a lot of noise, and we still have to figure out where are the areas of interest and the areas of rest and details, but I'm starting to see some potential on this creature head. Let's see. Cool. Can't wait to create stuff like this to come out naturally. About the Ultimate ZBrush Guide course, how frequently does it get updated with new ZBrush updates? ZBrush update. Oh, okay. So the Ultimate ZBrush Guide course, it's all about the methodology and the structure of the course. So in theory, you don't need to learn, like you don't need to have an updated module with new features, because I start from the absolute basics. And I explain the system on how ZBrush works, how I learned it, which I think is very, it's an easy way for you, let's say, to do it as well. So if there's a new tool, all you have to do is just, know what the tool is, start playing around with it, and then because you know all the basics and how other things work, you will pick it up really easy. However, having said that, I do like bonus lessons for new features as they come out. So I do live stream sessions and for the UCG course. So I will send around an email to whoever's part of the UCG and do a live stream where I walk you through the different features. In fact, for the ZBrush 2021.7, I did a live stream last week for the students, but I made it available to anyone because I think it's it has valuable information. But the way that I teach the new features, or the way that I show the new features, it's in a very similar way as to how I explain things in the Ultimate ZBrush Guide course. So using custom UIs and that sort of thing. So hopefully that answers the question. And yeah, so awesome, Derek. Yeah, looking forward to seeing you there as well. So for those of you who also just joined recently, I have like a hidden bonus that I thought I'd just give you guys here for just being here in the ZBrush Pixologic live stream. That from today until the day before, so the 22nd, the day before the ZBrush Summit, right? If you join and you join the creature workshop, the end-to-end creature workshop, you get a bonus material, let's say, a bonus basically, which is essentially live sessions with feedback. So we're gonna do some group session So after you obviously you go through the intensive course, because it's a program that lasts 5 days in theory. I mean, you can do everything in one sitting, but I would recommend to take your time and literally just follow what I have planned, what I have set up in the course, the structure. But yeah, you can do everything in one go if you want to. So after those 5 days, I'll create a couple of live sessions where you can submit your work and we can go through it together a little bit more depth and just really figure out how we can enhance and improve your designs and concepts. So that's going to be, I'll put it in the website sometime today or tomorrow. Just wanted to give you guys the chance to get it first, sorry. Okay, so this is starting to look interesting. As you can see, I'm still, for the most part, let's go ahead and make this a single polymesh or polygroup. Let's start to push the design a little bit more. This is the type of things that I need to look for. This bump here, this looks very much like just the end of that tube. But for the most part, again, you'll see that it's all about working on those transitions so that it doesn't feel like these are tubes. So it's now a little bit harder to identify where those tubes were, because they're kind of like embedded in the other mesh, which is what I was going for. And you can create all sorts of different things like with the same technique, not just creature stuff. You can tweak the curve brush to be more like a muscle brush and do like biceps and that sort of thing. In fact, let me just show you. So you can create a brush out of the curve brush. So this is currently what we get. Let's actually go switch back to the 1C. This is what we get. What you can do is change the tapering of that curve. So let's put the stroke palette here on the right hand side. Go to the curve modifiers, right? And here I'm going to click on size to activate the size, and that gives me access to this follow curve, right? And the follow curve is just going to be a profile telling ZBrush that, okay, at the beginning or at the root, which is the left hand side, and whatever you see these profiles, it works in the same way for anything that you see like this in ZBrush. Anything on the left hand side is the root or the beginning, and anything on the right hand side is the end of the curve, right? So right now ZBrush is telling, okay, start really, really small and then go to the full size of whatever brush size you have, right? So if I click and drag like this, you see this is pretty much what we have. At the beginning, like we have here, it's pretty small, and at the end, it's pretty big, or it's like the full size of the brush size, right? Now, if I go ahead and change this, let's say, I don't want it to be that small, maybe something like that. I want the end to be very similar, right? So now, even though I have my brush size this size, and I drag it like this, you'll see, compared to the size of my brush, this is just a tiny bit, right? So the diameter of the brush is this, but the diameter of, or the size of the tube is this much. So that gap that you see, or like the difference between the actual size of the brush and the size of the tube, is essentially this gap, right? So going back to that, let's undo that. I actually want this to create kind of like a bicep muscle. So I'm going to keep the end and the beginning and the end the same, but I can click to add a new point and push that up. So now this is going to be the highest point or the thickest area in the middle. If I click and drag, now we have this sort of bicep type of thing, which is pretty cool. And you can keep editing the profile. So one thing that I like to do is with this, if you hover over the point, it gives you this yellow kind of like ridge, which you can actually click and tweak. So you can make it smaller, so it's a bit sharper, or you can push it a bit more so that it's, the fall off, it's a little bit faster between the lowest points or the sharpest points. In fact, we can just push this a little bit more. You can also tweak the sharpness of these points from the ridge of that little circle. Click on drag. So now this is working quite well. Now the other thing is that most muscles, they're not like this, right? You don't have muscles that work in this fashion. They are wrapped around and work in a way that ultimately is just to pull things, to pull the skeleton, right? Whether it's for a creature or a human or whatever. So you won't find a muscle that is curvy like this because it wouldn't make sense, right? There's one thing that I also, when I'm doing anatomy, this is always at the back of my head, which is the let's see. Oh, here we go. So let's say, come on, sorry. So let's say that you have a, I'm gonna keep it very simple, a bone like this. Like let's say that this is the arm, this is the shoulder, and this is the wrist, right? You will find, obviously, depending on what you're doing, and most of the things that I do are sometimes like creature and exaggerating the anatomy and stuff like that. But as long as you keep certain bits and pieces that are realistic within your designs, it will sell the idea that it's something that can exist. So I wouldn't have like a this type of muscle that goes like this, right? Because it doesn't really make much sense, right? So this is what I was just referring to. So you can, even if you're making this up, you can go, okay, from the acromion process or whatever, a point in here, you can go and insert the equivalent of a bicep type of thing, or a brachialis or whatever, if you're doing like creature design, into this bone, right? And then you probably have another one here, but they're the point that I'm trying to make here is that they're like almost like a straight line, so that they can actually pull things. So, and then if you think about this in this fashion, then you can start thinking about the fat deposits and other muscles that go around. So maybe you have the shoulder in here, but then this guy has this really thick arm in this area. So for whatever reason. So I'm just showing you a little bit of the thinking process behind this idea of setting this muscle brush, which is, again, I'm branching out. So let me undo all of that. So that whole spill of things that I just mentioned is just to say that you can click on this as line, and now this muscle is going to be a line, which is what we want. We want to make sure that this is a straight line to create the muscles. So I can do this, and then this, and then this, right? And it creates a muscle group very easily. So you can build, you can build things like this very easily. Let's see. Let me see the chat. If there is any questions. Cool, Derek. Awesome. It'll be amazing to update the artistic toolbox to take your extra mile. Awesome. Yeah, for sure. The extra mile course is also pre-recorded and is self-paced, but I only open it a few times a year. The next one probably is going to be after the ZBrush Summit or in October, depending on how the current students are doing. I have to check the progress. I haven't done that. Because yeah, although it is a self-paced course, it's much more than a course, and it's I like to spend time making sure that everyone gets started properly, and we have live sessions, and we have a very active community. So it's that's the reason why it's not open all the time, because I cannot afford having myself looking after every single person that randomly joins at any point in time. So it's only like little stages that I can offer myself, like my time for the course. But yeah, Javier, the best investment you can make. No worries. Thank you so much, Javier. I really appreciate the kind words. It's it's really nice. And Javier, by the way, has gone a very long way. Not to say that the first thing that he did was not great, but if if he were to show you the first thing that he did in the course and the things that he's doing right now, and getting features and in different stuff, it's amazing. So it's really great to see as well, like the progress that the students are making, and that it's actually working. So I really appreciate that, Javier. Why the day before the ZBrush Summit? Wouldn't make sense to end the summit so you can promote during the weekend. Yeah, I mean, for sure. I just the thing is also the 3D Concept Artist website, Comics Legend. It's one of the sponsors of the ZBrush Summit. So I have a few things. I'm not gonna say what they are, but if you join, if you watch the live streams and the ZBrush Summit, then there's gonna be some giveaways that you might be able to get. So that's one of the reasons, and I'm being a little bit vague about it, but one of the reasons I will I will stop that extra bonus. But again, it's not something that the creature workshop is going to be available after that and during the ZBrush live. So it's not like you cannot access after the 22nd. The 22nd is just the cutoff for the amount of people that I'm hoping I can handle as a live stream for the feedback. That makes sense. So from now until the 22nd, I think that's enough time for anyone that's really truly interested in the workshop and getting feedback on their work to join. And after that, it's kind of like the cutoff point, and I won't be able to take more students for the live sessions for the feedback. But the course itself and the content of it will be available after that. So hopefully that answers the question. How do you make sure that my mesh does not have so many million of polygons? When I take it to Blender, the file is very heavy. Yeah, I mean, this is a ZBrush live stream, but of course I can show you how you can do that. By the way, let's keep this muzzle brush, and if you guys want it later, I can give it to you as well. So I'm gonna do a couple of muzzles to create a quick icon. Let's clear that mask, hide that piece, delete hidden. I'm gonna unify this piece, change to the, let's go for where are we? I lost my here we go. Toy plastic. Toy plastic works best for this type of brushes. And let's go to the brush palette, click on select icon, and now I have that icon, so I know that this is my muzzle brush, and I can go and save it. So let's just click on save. And I'm going to call it muscles. That's it. Link to my sites. You can just go to, I'll put it here in the chat. 1 second. But if you want to see like the other projects that I have, like the 3D snippets, I guess you can Google it, but so you can go to the 3D snippets, or just go to my, actually I should have done that, sorry, blender.com. If you go to this website, that's just like a single page website that has the links to all the different projects that that I have. So in case you don't know, the 3D snippets is something that started as an experiment, like a Patreon experiment, and it has evolved quite a bit. And I sort of like created my own custom platform and everything, and it's just a really cool way for me to develop, my own work, my own pieces, like portfolio pieces. Especially now that I am doing quite a few things in the educational space with the 3D concept artist, as well as you know, I'm working for a couple of studios as a freelancer, so my time is getting reduced in terms of what I can produce for myself, which is something that I don't want to lose at all in terms of, yeah, the personal pieces and portfolio pieces. I always try to come up with ideas and stuff. So these ZBrush Live sessions with you guys is actually quite good for me to develop ideas as well. But the 3D snippets is something that holds me accountable because it is a paid subscription. So every month I try to start a new piece, and I can focus on, you know, different workflows, different ideas, like, yeah, different stuff. And yeah, and basically, like, if you join the 3D snippets as well, it's just a subscription based thing. It's like $9. You get access to all the different pieces that I share and the work in progress, everything that I share throughout the everything that I share throughout the month of creating that specific project. And what's cool about it as well is not because I do share a lot of things anyway on, you know, my social media or whatever. So the difference is with that one. Oops, that was close. Let's do a quick save. Just froze for a moment there. I don't know what I did. So what I was saying is that the difference with the 3D snippets and the other things that I share online is just that because it is a paid subscription, it's just a way that I can justify basically doing these type of things and sharing more and produce more content, because then I'm not, you know, yeah, I need to pay the bills basically. So if I'm not doing that and I'm just doing like free stuff, which I love doing, I'm not stopping that. You know, it just allows me to spend more time doing that. That's basically it, right? Anyway, so all of these things that I'm doing, they don't look like much, but they're kind of like, you know, ways to connect all of these pieces. So one thing I can do is hold Control and Shift to select the rest, invert the masking, hold Control and hide that, right? Let's go ahead and use the Move brush. And I'm going to start pushing these things in. So this essentially is the same idea as what I did before, but obviously, you know, we have like thinner areas, so we have to be a bit more careful of how we integrate these with the rest. But they're gonna be like, it's almost like exposed tendons or something. When I use the Move topological, just push that in, and the Move topological respects the topology. So that allows me to just move things. I don't have to mask things out. In fact, I don't even have to have the original mask that I did for the rest of the head. But I think that works. Let's go ahead and clear the mask. And because now we have smaller pieces, if I go ahead and do a Dynamesh right now, it's not going to be enough resolution to maintain all of the thin areas. And ZBrush is going to look at some like tiny holes that might be around there, and it's going to merge them together. So if I want to keep all of that, I can either keep these as, you know, separate meshes, and that's probably a good idea, just so that we can, you know, hide. Let's do that. Split hidden. Again, just so that we can, you know, go into solo mode and we can add some details here a lot easier, and then just work on these other pieces. What I'll do with this though is I'm going to bring in the inflate brush, and I'm just going to add a bit of thickness to certain areas, like just to the ends, or to the areas that connect to the rest of the mesh, really. Now, all of these pieces are, for the most part, it has a clean geometry because it's ultimately from the tube brush. So it has a clean geometry. So I don't have to redynamesh or anything. I can just keep it as it is. If you wanted to, explore these shapes a little bit more and you want to use Dynamesh, if you were to just go ahead and Dynamesh this whole thing, obviously is going to merge everything together. But if you Dynamesh with groups on, so all of those tools for you guys are in here. Dynamesh, if you click on groups and click Dynamesh, Dynamesh is going to apply that dynamics of, it's going to dynamically change the topology, and you can play around with resolution and all of that. But because you select the groups, it is going to keep all the groups separately. So this is still the same subtool, still using Dynamesh. You can just do all of these and redynamesh. But even though I redynamesh all of that, I'm still keeping the groups. So I can just literally hide this piece, right? Even though it looks like it's a whole Dynamesh piece. So this is a fantastic tool. All right, let's undo all of that. Go back to these. But I kind of like that sort of bulging effect. And maybe with the move brush, make sure this is quite embedded into the mesh. And we can use something like the subdivision approach, or because this is a clean geometry, I can also turn on dynamic, and that's going to give me a pretty smooth version of this mesh. But it's fine at this stage. So let's go back to the head, and let's see if we can play around with other stuff. So I'm going to use a standard brush, just the standard brush in ZBrush. And let's go ahead and do some tweaks here to the volumes. And this is just to give a hint, a visual hint of the different areas of where these tendons are sort of like joining in. So, they go inside the skin or something. And this is very, very easy with the standard brush. So again, this process is more about like justifying why you put those things in there. Like make sure that they're not just I don't know, just like a kit bash and you just leave it there. That they actually make sense to have them there for whatever reason you come up with. And you can make up the reason as long as you have one. So I don't know, this might be some if I'm doing this as a proper design and I need to justify these design choices that I'm making, I can come up with a story, right? And I can try to justify these design changes to suit that story. And based on that, I can create something a lot more, I wouldn't say necessarily original, but something that can hold itself a lot more, just because it's more realistic. So for example, I could say there is this fox, it's kind of like a dog fox I believe it's in South Africa, if I'm not mistaken, or I think it's it's one of the fox in the Sahara desert, I think. Anyway, if you know which one I'm talking about, you'll correct me. It's a little fox that it's primarily just white fur, and it has massive ears, and it's tiny. It's like this big, but the ears are massive. And that fox, the reason the ears are so big is just it developed in evolution. It developed the massive ears because it has the blood vessels and the veins that are in that area of the ears. When it gets really, really hot in the Sahara, it can sort of like those vessels get swollen, and the ears have like almost like a cooling system, right? So the veins get swollen, like the whole thing gets swollen, and it just is more fresh, I suppose. It just cools down the entire animal. So it's just, I mean, nature is amazing. So, but those little hints, and I'm like a huge fan of natural history, and you know, those type of things really help me in the designs as well. So now I'm thinking about these tendons. Maybe this creature is in, you know, it's a creature from hell or something. But it can be like a cooling mechanism, right? So it just diverts the blood inside the head and just sends it to these flaps. So these areas. But at the same time, it serves as, it kind of like exposes the blood or the hot blood a lot more, and it cools it down, or you know what I mean. So it's just, the whole point of this, of what I'm saying, is just so that whatever choice I do in the design makes sense, or at least makes sense to me. But yeah, I think this might go somewhere, and it's just the head anyway. All right, so I'm gonna take the move brush. Let me just check this, the chat. Yeah, move topological is amazing. I wouldn't say it is superior or not. It is very useful as a specific tool for a specific job. You can actually turn any brush into a topology brush. By the way, if you wanted to, let me just show you that, and I'll give you the reason why it's not necessarily a replacement of the move brush, because this is not why, but this is just to show you how you can turn any brush into that. How are we doing with time, by the way? We have like 35 minutes. Yeah, we can get to some details, not all of them, but anyway. Let's just do a quick mask, and I'm just gonna assign a polygroup there. Let's give it a different color so you can see it, right? And let's go to the skin shade 4 so you can see better. So these are two different polygroups. Although this is not, by the way, let me just put the brush in here. I have these tools that I'm going to show you in my UI, but you know, it's a lot easier if I just show you where you can actually find them. So in the brush palette, you can go to auto masking. So you have two ways to go about it. If these are separate meshes, in fact, let's use that one as an example, just a lot easier. Right? If I use the move brush, you move everything that is within reach of that brush at the same time. That's why the move topological is so good. But you can take the move brush, or any brush for that matter, or most brushes, and go to this button here and click on topological. So just by clicking on topological with the move brush selected, we essentially turn that brush into a move topological brush. That's what I'm saying. You can do it with most brushes. So now ZBrush is gonna look at the topology and respect it. So you can use anything. You can use the inflate brush, which normally would give you this effect. You can turn on that into inflate topological brush and just affect one single of these things at a time. So any brush can be turned into a topological brush. Now, the reason, hang on, don't forget to turn it off. The reason I say it's not necessarily a replacement of the move brush is that when you have a large, you know, a mesh that has 1,000,000 polygons, using the move topological in that mesh will likely crash because in a single stroke, you're asking ZBrush to analyze the entire topology of 1,000,000, 3,000,000 polygons at the same time in one single go, and then basically allowing you to move just a little bit. So be careful about that. It's not necessarily a replacement. That's why it's good to have polygroups, especially when you move on in the levels of subdivision. Another cool thing that you can do as well is if you have polygroups, you can use let's say, the clay brush. And of course, you can start doing this. I'm going to do a different brush so that it's more obvious. The clay brush, the clay tubes. So you can do this type of thing, right? In fact, let me turn on back facing. There we go. So that's no problem. But if you select any brush as well, and you go to mask by polygroups, and you set this to 100, now ZBrush again, and this is on a per brush basis, I think. I can't remember. Let me just switch to another brush. Oh no, so that one is, that's what I wanted to check. This is a global setting, whereas the topological is, I think, on a per brush basis. So the mask by polygroups with this clay brush at 100%, sorry, the clay brush and the mask by polygroups at 100%. Now, if I click first on the green polygroup, whatever I do is only going to be affected in that polygroup. So this is an awesome tool if you're doing more like hard surface stuff and you have like a nice clean set of polygroups. You can just start like sculpting literally on the area that you want without affecting anything else. That's the reason I created this random polygroup. And you know, it works with any brush, right? So I can switch to the inflate brush and do this type of thing, right? So that's really, really cool. So let's set that back to 0. Again, it's a global setting. And let's give it a single polygroup. Go back to where we were before. All right. So let me check the chat. The Fennec Fox, yes, I think that's the one that I was talking about, Ruben. Thanks. So that cooling mechanism of the massive ears of the Fennec Fox, I think that's the one anyway. That's the that's the type of thing that I'm looking for. Let me just give 1 second. Not that you need to know that, but I have it bookmarked somewhere. So it's somewhere in the Sahara Desert, I believe. But it might be that one. So yeah, I'm not gonna waste time. Just wanted to show you. Anyway, this is I hugely recommend this David Attenborough, Live on Earth. It is an awesome book. I use it for like references all the time, and it has, it has like really useful information to, like I said, figure this type of designs out, but also has like amazing photography for all sorts of things. So anyway, I think I just need to find it, but it's in there. Let's just call it the Fennec Fox. If it's not, sorry about the misinformation, but it's one of those. It's just a white fox with huge ears, and it's tiny, and it lives in the desert. Cool. All right, so let's go ahead and start doing some more details. I'm going to polish this a little bit more because right now it just doesn't feel great. But just for the sake of using another tool from the new version of ZBrush, the updated version of ZBrush, let's go for the knife brushes. So I can use the knife lasso, which is awesome because it also works as with symmetry. So I can do this and just clip things like so. And just, before doing this type of thing in ZBrush was a bit of a pain. You'll have to do a few steps to just do that, which now it's amazing. And it works depending on the direction that you use, by the way. So for example, if you hold, and it is the same thing as doing the knife curve. Let's do a quick save. So with the knife brush, which is kind of like the trim brushes in a way, so you can hold Control and Shift, do this, let go, and it will clip that area, right? It does it symmetrically. So if you hold Control and Shift, you'll see that there is a shaded area for that that curve. That's where what ZBrush is gonna basically cut and knife that area out. If you hold the space bar, you can reposition this. And if I go the other way, right, so from right to left, now the shaded area is at the bottom. If I do that, ZBrush is gonna clip everything but that bit, which is not what I want. So that's the same idea with the knife lasso. So you might use the knife lasso and then at some point get a bit frustrated as to why it's not clipping what you want. That is exactly what's happening. It's depending on where you start. So from left to right or top to bottom, or left to right and bottom to top. So I'll give you an example. So if I hold Control and Shift and do this, I started from the right and did that whole thing, which, that's how I clip it. But if I go the opposite way, it's kind of like flipping that shaded area. If I do that, it's just gonna flip and cut the rest, which is not what I want. So be aware of that. It is meant to be, it is by design, and it's a good thing. Just need to get used to it. I'm just gonna clip a few things that I'm not happy with, and I think they could, they could do with an extra empty space, I suppose. But you know, doing these type of things with with ZBrush, like I said before, was a bit tricky. Now it's just a breeze, and it works really well. Plus, it gives you a very nice topology, by the way. As in, it's a Boolean topology, but it's very nice. Not entirely sure if that's what I want to do. Right, so now it just became like a Mazdam chase type of thing, which is, it's not bad. I think it could go with the design as well, and we can use these gaps now to connect them somehow, which is cool. Again, I'm designing things as I go, and still this doesn't have like a very evident shape, but we might go with something. Let's define this a little bit more. Right now, this is a triangular shape. You know, is basically, this is the main shape, right? And I'm trying to replicate or maintain this same, like I said, visual language with these shapes across the design. Although I haven't defined this very much. You know, you can find same sort of, you know, basic shapes around that follow the same idea, even with the gaps that I created here with the lines, with these tendons. They're kind of like all triangular. So that's what what I said at the beginning. Like, even though you don't have a clear design, if you have a vision, and that's, again, trying to talk a little bit about the vision idea, that's what I'm sort of leaning towards. But what I want to show you is, if I go back to these guys here, if I use the knife brush in here, the resulting mesh, it's well, in this case, it's in a single one, so it's easy to see. Still it hidden. If I do this, the resulting geometry is actually most of the squads. It's just around the edges that you get that you get like the Boolean topology. But this is great because it simplifies the whole process for a zero measure, for example. So if I do the same thing in here, right? So we have two different polygroups in here and in here, with very decent topology that is easy to understand for the zero measure. So if I go to the zero measure here, open that up, I have it here at the bottom, all my zero measuring tools. But just so you know, in the zero measure, you can click on keep groups, and we don't need to smooth out groups because the actual division between the polygroups that are the resulting polygroups or meshes from the knife are super clean. So you can just set this to 0, keep groups, click on half, and zero mesh that. So you see now ZBrush is going to respect that nice loop around these areas. This one needs a little bit of work. You can smooth this out a bit. But this one is, super nice. And we have a very clean geometry just by using the knife brush. Every time they use the knife brush, there's a new polygroup, and relatively very decent topology is just a Boolean topology. But you can use the zero measure to fix it, which is awesome. So that's just a little extra tip on the side. Now it's time to polish this a bit more. Maybe we can use the trim dynamic just to take this top area and just flatten that piece a bit more. Just sharpen it. Also, you'll see that this is the type of topology that I got. What I'll do is I'm going to increase the resolution a tiny bit, redynamesh the whole thing, and I'm just going to smooth those clippings because, again, it's a very organic piece. So although I like the cuttings, I'm just going to integrate them a little bit more just by smoothing those edges. Let's go to solo mode. I haven't spent any time at all here at the back anyway, but it probably is a good idea to check from every angle. Let's just do a quick smoothing pass. I see some activity here in the chat, so I'll just check in just a second. I'm also going to use the move brush here. And this is something that I mentioned before when I moved these points. That is fantastic about the topological, like not having to use the topology brush, but using the adjust last. So if I want to, let me just give you a hint of what I'm trying to achieve here. So the thinking process behind of this is right now, this line is, although there are some gaps, right? Some clear gaps. It is pretty smooth and pretty clean. We can maintain that, but I like to make things a bit, you know, not symmetrical, but not necessarily consistent in that sense. I don't know if that's the right word. So what I'm planning to do is just take this bit, right, or this one, and just push it forward a bit more so that it breaks that pattern or breaks that line, that, you know, visual curve, visual line in there, or line of action, depending what you want to call it. Same thing with this. It's very clear that this is a very clean line. So I might take this one and push it a bit more just to break things apart and break the silhouette. Sometimes that's a really good thing. So before I could just, you know, mask this area so that I don't affect it. Because if I do it right now with a large brush size, just to move this thing, you'll see I'm affecting everything. I can go ahead and quickly mask this out, and that way I don't affect that. But, you know, with the new adjust last, you know, this is something that I personally have been using quite a bit. So you can just go ahead and click, push that a little bit without affecting anything else, and then use the adjust to do this kind of tweaks. And it's also something really cool when you want to keep something very sharp. So if I move this point, this corner, it maintains that sharpness as well. So what I'm doing right now is just having a look at the complexity of this shape and try to make it easier to read, really, before I even go into details, because that's, you know, this is 80% of what goes on into the design is just how you read that form as soon as you see it. And it's not symmetrical for some reason. I'm just gonna do a mirror and well just here at the bottom to recover that symmetry. So yeah, now I have the adjust last here, and it has become almost like my go-to. Every time that I do a little notch like that, then go here and keep adjusting it like this, just because it is visually, it allows me to see what I did with my last stroke, but being able to adjust it is just fantastic. So you see me doing this type of thing quite a bit. I don't know if it is a good thing or a bad thing, but yeah, now like my move brush, or the effect of my move brush, has been severely truncated to just do little nudges and then use the move adjust to exaggerate it. All right, so let's have a look at the chat, see if there's any questions in here I can help with. I remember the clipping brushes having those weird flat polygon mistakes in the past that fixed those brushes now. Those, yeah, I think the polygon mistakes that you're referring to when you're using the clip brush, you have to remember what the clipping brushes do is they don't remove or change the topology. They actually just take whatever you have there and it's just going to clip it towards the line. So if I were to do this in here, so if I use the clip brush and I clip, let's say this area right here, right? If I clip that towards that line, ZBrush is not going to cut this, or it's not going to remove or edit the topology. It's going to literally it's going to have a look from this angle. So this is an eye. It's going to look at this from this angle, right, from the top, or from, perpendicular to the curve. So this will be the shaded line, right? It's going to look at that and say, okay, I'm going to start looking to all of that, and it's going to find points along this area, and it's going to say, okay, I found all of these points. I'm going to push them down against that curve. So that means that this point right here is not going to get cut off. It's just going to be pushed here. This point here is going to be pushed like this way, this way, this way, this way, and so on and so forth. So from this angle, it's going to look, let me clear that up. So hopefully that makes sense. So from that angle, it's going to look like this. This was the line. This is gone, right? It's going to look like that, but those weird polygons that you're referring to are just the resulting of this sort of gap in here. So you end up with a line in there, right? Like a coplanar set of points in there, and that's it's not an issue. It's by design. You use the clip brushes in a very specific workflow, but yeah, this is what you get. So just think about that. The clip brushes are not cutting anything. They're clipping it, just flattening basically towards the curve. If you want to remove them, that's where the trim curves come into play. But now with the knife brushes, I wouldn't say they're obsolete. Again, it's for different type of workflows, but the knife brushes sort of like save a lot of time as well. Okay, we have 15 minutes and we haven't done much detail, so let me just check again. Is there any function to where you're able to mask multiple points on your sculpt and be able to pick a point anywhere on the model and either drag a subtool out of a sculpt, and whenever you drag or I'm not really getting this question. Sculpting the mask areas with your drag the sculpt. Sculpted in the affected areas. Sorry, I'm not entirely sure what that question means. Maybe have another go, and I'll see if I can answer that. I can draw yellow lines. Yeah, that's by the way, Epic Pen. If you're not familiar with that, allows you to draw on the screen as well. I use it for most of my streams anyway. Okay, cool. So yeah, S7. I'm not entirely sure. If you can give it another go asking the question, I can try to answer it. Let's see if that's what. Yeah. See if I can answer the question. All right. So now I have a bit more topology. I'm gonna also subdivide these. Oh yeah, I forgot what I was gonna say. So we can go ahead and do a few more details. Maybe I can use some of my custom brushes just to speed up the process, but you can do the same thing with the brushes that come with ZBrush. I just want to show you that like these tendons, you can go like even in like more interesting sort of ways. Let me see. Let's create a quick brush to show you what I mean. So I'm gonna go to the cylinder, make it a polymesh 3D. Boom, that's it. Now let's take that cylinder, rotate the camera, holding Shift, turn off perspective, and let's go ahead and duplicate these a few times. So I'm gonna hold Control and click on that one, and I'm just gonna scale it just to variate the thickness of this. So I'm gonna hold Control every time that I drag. I'm just duplicating within the same subtool a new cylinder, and yeah, I'm just variating the size, and this ultimately is gonna be a tube. So variating the thickness of it. Yeah, let's say something like that would be fine. You want more for over there. Clear that and rotate around, holding Shift to snap to that camera. I'm gonna scale this up, and then I'm gonna use the knife curve. Oops, let's do the other way around. Holding Control and Shift, so that they all have the same, the same angle, right? That's it. So now what I can do is turn this into a brush, and I can use the alpha to extrude this. You can do this in a couple of ways because you have an actual like nice topology, you can just do a quick series measure and extrude that topology, which it could give you like a cleaner set of objects. Let's just do that. So for that, let's go ahead and hold Control and Shift to isolate that piece. Right, let's delete hidden. So now we have just a bunch of circles in there, and we're gonna go ahead and click on series measure, and I'm gonna click on half. I'm gonna remesh this a few times. Let's just do a quick smooth as well. I think I can do it manually, to be honest. And yeah, so now that we have this, we can manually, with the something like the C modeler, we can right click on an edge, and I'm going a little bit fast here because we have like about 10 minutes and I do want to show you this. It's a pretty cool thing. I'm going to hold, right click on an edge, make sure delete is selected, and I'm going to click, I'm going to right click on an edge, delete, edge loop complete, and just some of them, not all of them, just to simplify it even further. The rest are fine. I mean, you can go ahead and simplify it even further if you wanted to. But yeah, I think it's fine. We can right click as well and do slide complete, just so that we have a more consistent size of polygons all around. Even though the topology is not great, it's just something quick to generate a quick brush. And you can do this a lot, this is just going to be a quick one anyway. Let's also do a auto groups. So we have different groups, and that's it. We can, I mean, this is kind of like the one way to go about it. If you go ahead and click on something like the extrude profile, let's click on that. You'll see that all of these things are literally just geometry like that, just single planes that have a specific side or a specific shape, right? So you can click on brush and go from mesh, and that creates a new tool right here, or a new geometry. So now when you use this brush, do it with a larger brush size. When you use this brush like this, what you're extruding is actually, when you select it, actually, let's do that again. When you extrude it, you're actually extruding those points. So you can create like hair, or, so I'm literally just extruding those polygons. So that's one way to go about it. You can just save that and use that. I'm going to show you one other way, which is basically going back to what I did before. So you don't have to have a single plane. You can just have geometry like this. Make sure that perspective is off. And I'm going to use the alpha. So in the alpha palette, you can go to from mesh here, and that will bring this pop-up window. So you can hold the Alt key and move around, rotate, the same thing as you would do with the ZBrush rotation. And this is the alpha that I'm going to use. I'm just going to get a little bit closer. And just for the sake of, just to be sure, I'm going to increase the map size to 1024, right? And click OK. So now ZBrush literally just took what I had here, or what we had in that window, and created an alpha. So now with this alpha, I can go to another brush called this Curve Alpha and Curve Alphas. The difference between these two, they're exactly the same. The difference is that it's the same difference as where are we? It's the same difference as the curve tubes and this curve multi-tube. Basically, with the curve alphas, with an S, is for multiple alphas, so you can click and drag with the same the same stroke, the same alpha, not the same stroke, sorry, the same alpha, but you don't have to apply the curve. So it's just the same thing. It's just one adds one at a time, the other one adds multiple. So I'm going to click on curve alpha, and if I go to the alpha palette, now I can go ahead and click on this alpha that I have selected, and this is going to be like the curve brush, but it's going to use my tubes or my cylinders to generate these meshes, which is pretty awesome. All right, so now with that, let's go back to our creature here, and We're upside down. So if I wanted to, I can go ahead and click on, I also can go ahead and go to the stroke palette, and I'm gonna do the same. The size, maybe just remove the size so there's no changes in that. So I'm gonna make it as line, and I'm gonna go to the picker as well and make sure that 1C is selected. So I can click and drag, do this. Oh, I'm doing it in the wrong subtool. Let's do it again. Click and drag. A smaller brush size, that's too big. Just thinking about a way that I can do this. Click and drag. All right, so something like this. Just trying to place this somewhere interesting. And then I can just apply this. I can go ahead and click on split on mask points. So now I have just this in a separate tool, and I can use the move brush now, and I can start adjusting this. I can go to inflate all of those pieces at the same time. You know, this might not be in the design. I just want to show you the tool or the trick. And I can use the move topological as well, and I can just start, splitting this a bit more, so that it generates that nice sort of connection that we did more manually with the other tools or the other brushes. Well, the muscle brush that I created, but this time you have all of the pieces at once, kind of like going in the same direction. And you can create tubes and cables and tendons and all sorts of interesting stuff just by creating your own custom brush like I did. And yeah, do that. So I'm not gonna keep that. I just want to show you the process. So we have 5 minutes. So let me just do something that I wanted to do, which is kind of like defining this a little bit. So this is a brush from the Geiger and Beksinski pack that now it has become kind of like my go-to brushes. Is more like the standard brush for me to create these sharp lines. So I can use that to again to reinforce that idea of areas of this creature where these tendons are joining in. But not only that, is we can start playing around a bit more with the design. So trying to maintain that same idea of what I did with the tubes at the beginning to set up all these interesting patterns, but going with a little bit more care and try to design this a bit more. So all of these areas are going to be covered by those veins or those patterns. So maybe here we can play around again with some interesting designs as well. Something like that. So yeah, you can sort of like see where hopefully you can sort of see where I'm going with these ideas of these bumps that I'm adding. It's kind of like the design of not details, but like it sort of informs the look and feel of this creature of what I'm going for. And I can use another brush, like let's use another one from the pack just because it's faster. You can do exactly the same thing that I'm doing, by the way, with a standard brush and just increasing the strength and changing the alpha, or with the damp standard brush. What I'm going to use is this HR Geiger Cutter, which again, for any of you who are not familiar with that, this is a pack of brushes that I released a few weeks ago that give you the effect of like Geiger effect. So it just they do this type of creepy details. Oh no, I replaced that. So I'm just using the cutter because it's like a very sharp and strong version, if you will, of the damp ZBrush. Or like it gives you similar effects. It's just a lot sharper and a lot stronger. So this is something that I would use to sharpen out the difference in here of the different bumps. So like I said, it can be done with the standard brushes in ZBrush, and in fact, most of the packs that I have online are essentially ways to speed up certain workflows, just because the effects that you get are a little bit optimized to just speed up the workflow really. I can come through with this and add a bit of indications of maybe some what could be, I don't know, maybe like some wrinkles or some folds, but especially just make sure that the difference between these veins or these bumps are very, very clear, very, very sharp. But yeah, I'm not gonna go through all of it because we won't have the time. But then after I do this pass, I will probably just go with a clay brush as well. And again, make sure, and I keep saying this because it's something that I think is the most important thing, is whatever you do, whatever change in the primary, secondary form that you do, like these bumps, I would like to make sure that whatever I do, it has an intentionality, even if it's just a tiny detail. And it could be unintentional in terms of the design and like what we did with this these tubes here. They really were not part of the design until we just made them part of the design, justifying the story. But what I mean with this is you need to make sure that whatever you do, it's you put in those details for a reason. So all that is to say that I don't want them to feel like they're isolated, like they're just like smashed into the design. I need to make sure that they feel unified. That's the word that I'm looking for. They feel unified and part of the same. So with a clay brush, I can just do these type of things, just embed them a little bit more as if they're part of the creature. But yeah, that's about it. All right, so to wrap up, I'm just gonna go through the chat and see if there's any more questions. I can specifically show you the different things. But one thing that I wanted to show you, that hopefully let's do a quick save of this weird creature, and let's click on sphere. So let's go ahead and do Nanomesh. And I'm gonna use my brush, right? So one of the cool things about this process that I'm gonna show you is that we can use some of the tools from ZBrush 2021.7 and then go to the render palette and do some really cool stuff. So for example, you can use, and again, what I'm gonna do in terms of the details that I'm gonna add, I'm gonna do with this custom brush, but you can do the same thing with any brush, and the standard brush is just fine. So I'm gonna enable RGB so that let's fill everything. So I can go ahead and paint with a yellow color while I'm doing the same thing. But this is not necessarily the trick. You can do the same thing with a material. So I'm gonna click on M for material, and yeah, and I can just paint literally with a different material. So let's fill object with this one, then switch to another material, and I can do that, right? The reason you see all these weird edges is because the material is applied into the mesh in the same way that the poly paint is applied. So it's to the vertex, and we don't have like we don't have resolution, so we're just filling the entire polygroup or polygons. So what I can do actually is, let's go for subdivision, so we have more resolution, or it's a little bit cleaner. Let's fill this with this material. Let's turn off M. I just wanted to show you the process, and I'm gonna use my normal approach to sculpt, right? Like what we were doing before with the head. But the difference is that now, because I know what I'm going to do, you can do this kind of like retroactively, like you can do the sculpt and then go back in time and set a point. But because I know what I'm going to do, I'm gonna hold Control and click a point in this in the timeline, and I'm just gonna start creating these details, right? So in the head that we were working on, we can go ahead and go back in time and set a point in the timeline. That's going to give you the same result. But all right, something like this. This is just a sculpting, right? But we have this setting here. So now what I can do is go to, all right, let's go to the masking palette so you see what I'm doing. Masking palette. I want to click on mask change points. So now ZBrush is looking at what the difference is between that point that we set here, holding Control in the timeline, and where we are right now, and it's telling you, okay, these are the mask points. Great. Now we can also use the boost mask. So I have all of those tools, but I'm showing you in here. I have all those tools in here. I can click on boost or dilute. I want to click on boost mask. So I'm going to make this very, very sharp, right? And no matter how much I keep pressing or clicking on boost mask, ZBrush is not going to expand that more than whatever the change points are. But maybe this is a little bit too much. I think one more time. So now we have a very, very sharp set of points. Now what's great about this is that we can, invert the mask, and we can do something like inflate, or we can polish everything. Let's do inflate again, and then we can tweak the adjust, right? But that's kind of like going back to what I said before. Now we have these details that we created just with just the details that we created with mask, and we can go back to what I was saying, go to the material, and maybe we can go for gold material, right? So I want this to be some kind of like gold embedded pieces of metal in here in this creature, right? This is just a sphere, but you get my point. With the material enable and the different material selected, I'm going to click on fill object and clear the mask. So now this material is applied only to these areas, which is awesome. So that's part of the trick, but not all of it, right? If this has maybe less, yeah, let's go for less. You can kind of like see it in there. Now, because of the way that ZBrush applies material or polypaint, it is dependent on the topology. So if you want something very, very clean and sharp, like similar to what I have here, you need to have more resolution. Or if you want to have a nice blending of these materials at render time, this is the trick. Once you have set this up so easily with the new tools, you can go to the render palette, and let's go ahead and click on BPR. For you guys, BPR, I think I forgot even where that is. Render pass is here. So render pass, click on BPR. So that gives you a quick render, right? But something that you can do is either soften the normals of the polygon so that you don't see those things in here. So if you look at this area, it's kind of like you can tell that there are polygons in there, and that's due to the amount of resolution you have. So in here, you can go to render properties, and you can click on smooth normals. So if I do a render again, now, even though I have relatively low res, by clicking smooth normals, now we have a super clean version of this. So now you don't see any of that. What you see though is the difference here between the materials, right? So we solved one problem, but we still have to figure out how to solve that material. So this is kind of like a rendering tip, I suppose. Just wanted to show you that with the new tools it's very easy to get to this point. So in the rendering palette as well, you also have, let me just remember what that is. I think is on the, I haven't used it for a while, so I forgot where it is. Oh, here. So this material blending radius, that's essentially this. So at 1, if I do a BPR, that's what we get. But if I increase this material blending radius, ZBrush is going to add a bit of blur. That's really what it is. It's just a blend between the difference in materials. So I can click BPR now, and at render time, you'll see now maybe even less than that. Just a tiny bit. Render. There we go. So how cool is that? So now we have a pretty clean mesh that has different materials, and it's only applying the smoothing of the normals and the material blending at render time. So you can go ahead and do the same thing for, let's go to the creature. Let's give it a fill object, but now let's see if it doesn't crash. I'm gonna go back in time to a time where I didn't have all of those crevices. Maybe somewhere there. I'm gonna hold Control to set a point in. No, not that. A point in there. Go forward in time, where I have all of those details. So this is what I'm saying. Like, you can sculpt this the normal way, the way that you want, and then just go back in time, and so select a different material, fill object. Oops, sorry. Let's mask last change points, invert the mask, or we can boost it first. Invert, right? Fill object with a gold. Maybe let's go ahead and tweak that mask. So let's boost that a bit more. The boost and dilute mask are fantastic, by the way. So just make sure that you try them. Fill object, clear that mask. So now we have a nice incrustation of these sort of golden bits and pieces. And I'm just a huge fan of this type of material blending of organic stuff with more metallic, I suppose, stuff. So anyway, so now, because we have, and their render settings are global, so it's the same settings that I tested out in that sphere. So in theory, although in this case we have more of a less resolution, so let's go ahead and set a BPR render, and we have those nice incrustation of gold, and we have the smooth normal, so everything looks pretty smooth, right? We can just reduce or increase that material blending a little bit. Maybe it's too much. So yeah, it's just a matter of course, as you can see, I need more resolution. So this is not something that I would do at this stage, and that's the reason I show you in a sphere. But the principle still applies, right? You can, even though, let's just do a render there. Even though this is not the final version, as a work in progress, you can sort of tell what sort of material ideas I'm going for. But the point is that using the new tools, getting to this stage is very, very easy. This still needs a lot of work in terms of refinement, but I think it's something that we can continue working on for the next stream for sure. Hang on. Can you slide things around? Yes, you can slide things depending on what the question is specifically. I'm not sure. Along the normals of polygons, maybe. Is there any function to where you're able to mask multiple points on your model and be able to pick another point anywhere on the model and either drag a tool out or sculpt, and it's affect the mask areas of the tool? Okay. I think I know what you mean. Kind of like when you were able to drag in different random shape in that one landscape model of the UFO. Yes, I think what you're trying to achieve is not with masking. You can do that with a nanomesh. So very, very briefly. Right, so instead of masking areas, what you can do is in a specific points, if you want to do an insert mesh and drag, what I would do is select my C modeler, right? I'm going to right click and I'm going to use polygroup, and I'm going to just leave it a single polygon. So wherever I click, this becomes a new polygroup, right? So I can determine just these areas as like if you were masking, right? Where you want to drag something out. And then all you have to do is take, whatever you have. Let's take a mesh like this peel, and I'm going to convert it into a Nanomesh brush. So I'm going to take this peel, right click. Now this is a Nanomesh brush. Right click on the polygon that I want, and I'm going to say use, instead of a single polygon, use polygroup all. So this tells ZBrush that look at every polygon on the mesh that you have that shares the same polygroup, the same ID, and apply whatever you have selected. So I can click and drag, and it's only in those areas that you're going to add that mesh. So that, I think that's what you need. That's what you're going for, not necessarily masking tools. Hopefully. Let's see what else. Is there a way to select to reselect a curve after you've made a few? No, there's no way to reselect the curve unless you use the multi-curve. As in, if you have this bit and you use something like the curve tubes, you can do this. Do a bunch of tubes at the same time. Just be careful not to redo it or connect them. So you can do a few of these ones, right? And as you can see, all of them retain the ability to edit the curves. And that is, and the reason that is still is available is because of the multi-curve. And when you finish, you can just click outside and that's it. If you use the curve brush, which is what I was using for the tendons, you have to sort of like agree or locked in those changes. That's the same. That's the main difference again with the curve alpha and the curve alphas. So you have multiple ways to do that. Cool. Is there any cool? This Pro, awesome. Gotta convince. Yeah, it is useful, but if you have the Cintiq, and I'm sure you can do it with the what's the other brand? I forgot the one with the pen, something pen, X Pen, and other brands that that manufacture this type of displays. You can do the same thing. It's just that Wacom, for me, it's very intuitive to set it up. In fact, there is a in my YouTube channel, there's a playlist for masking tips for ZBrush. There's one that I show you how I set this up, basically, in case you want to learn how to do it. Awesome. All right, so for those of you who join later today, just to wrap up today's session, just want to let you know that the Creature Workshop is now available. As in, you can get it now from the 3D Concept artist, and it's very exciting because it has been redesigned now. So the 3D Concept artist website, it's like completely revamped in terms of the structure and redesign. So you can have a look at this, go through it. It's a little bit easier to find things and understand what a course is, what a workshop is, the methodology that I use. But this is the course that I was mentioning. So if you click on the Creature Workshop, this is available now, and you can go through the different things that make up this course. What it's all about, what's the workshop, what's covered, all of that, and you can join. One thing that you won't find in the website, and this is kind of like a hidden bonus, and this is the reason I'm showing you this, is that between now and a day before the ZBrush Summit, so from now until this 22nd of September, anyone that joins in that period of time get access to a bonus bonus material, which is essentially, we're going to set up a couple of live sessions where I'm going to you can submit your work that you did throughout the program of the workshop. You can submit your work, and in a live session, we can go ahead and do live feedback, and I can do paint overs and show you where I consider to be, changes and things that you can do to improve the quality of your work. But yeah, this is in a nutshell what it is. I create this one, but you can create anything. That's the point of this workshop, that it's about the workflow, so you can build any type of creature you want. This is the one that I create. And also part of the bonuses of this workshop is the Malakota creature. So you have all the time lapses from scratch of how I build the Malakota creature, which is in my. Let me just show you actually what it is, so you know. It's in a there's a bunch of interesting concepts. Where is it? This one right here. So if you go to my ArtStation, this creature is exactly the one that I use as a testing ground when I was developing the workshop originally. So I built this whole thing from the ground up, and you have access to the time lapses and everything once you join, or once you get the course, right? The workshop course. So you get you get to see like the process, one more in time lapse and the other one kind of real time, and I'm walking you through all the steps of 2 different concepts that I have in my portfolio. So that's the point, and that was one of the intents of the workshop, is to be able to create some high quality content and high quality image in only 5 days. And in fact, it's only 3 hours a day roughly that you can spend like literally working. And yeah, and at the end of that week you have like a portfolio piece that you're proud of. So that was my one of the intentions, at least. So yeah, have a look at this 3D concept artist website, and if you're interested in creatures, join the creature workshop, and then get the bonus from if you get it between now and the 22nd, you get the bonus as well. All right, cool, awesome. All right, awesome. Thank you so much, guys. Appreciate you sticking around. Hopefully what I showed you today, although we still don't have like a very clear idea what this creature is. I'm thinking some kind of like Evangelion type of thing, like an angel creepy thing. We can work with that as a basis, as a premise, and continue defining this maybe in the next stream. So thanks again for joining, and if you join the creature workshop, I'll see you there. Have a good one, guys.